How does RAM work? The memory inside your computer explained in 6 minutes. What if I told you that your computer could have the fastest processor in the world? And still feel painfully slow? Sounds impossible, right? But it happens every day. Apps suddenly freeze. Games begin to stutter. Your browser takes forever to switch between tabs. Most people blame the CPU. But the real reason is often something much simpler. RAM. It's one of the most important parts of every computer, yet most people have no idea what it actually does. So how does RAM work? And why does adding more RAM sometimes make your computer feel like a brand new machine? We're about to break it all down in the next few minutes. But before we do, if you enjoy simple tech videos that explain complicated topics in an easy to understand way, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new video. Now, let's get started. Imagine you're working at a large office. All of the company's files are stored inside a huge filing room. Whenever you need a document, you could walk all the way to the filing room, find the file, and bring it back to your desk. But imagine doing that every few seconds. You'd spend more time walking than actually working. So instead, you keep the documents you're currently using right on your desk. That desk is exactly what RAM is for your computer. RAM stands for Random Access Memory. It acts as your computer's short-term memory, giving the processor instant access to the information it needs right now. Without RAM, the processor would constantly have to retrieve data from your storage drive, which is much slower. As a result, everything would feel sluggish. When you turn on your computer, your operating system is loaded from your SSD into RAM. When you open a web browser, its files are copied from the SSD into RAM. When you launch a game, the game's textures, sounds, maps, and other important data are also loaded into RAM. The processor then reads this information directly from memory because it's incredibly fast. As you continue using your computer, RAM constantly changes. Open another application. More data is added. Close a program. Some memory is freed. Watch a video. Open dozens of browser tabs. Listen to music while editing photos. RAM is constantly storing and replacing information as your computer decides what needs to stay available. This happens millions of times every second without you even noticing. Now, many people confuse RAM with storage, but they serve completely different purposes. Your SSD or hard drive is designed for long-term storage. That's where your photos, videos, games, documents, and operating system are permanently saved. Even if you shut down your computer, everything stays there. RAM works very differently. It only stores information while your computer is powered on. The moment you turn your computer off, everything inside RAM disappears. The next time you power it back on, RAM starts completely empty and begins filling up again as programs are opened. That's why RAM is called volatile memory. It's extremely fast, but only temporary. So what actually makes RAM so fast? Unlike storage drives, RAM is designed specifically for rapid access. The processor can read and write data almost instantly. Instead of waiting for information to travel from long-term storage, it can grab what it needs immediately. This dramatically reduces delays and allows your computer to feel smooth and responsive. Every click you make, every window you open, every game you play, and every video you watch depends on this constant flow of information between the CPU and RAM. But RAM has one limitation. There's only so much of it. Once it becomes full, your computer has a problem. It still needs space for new information, but there's nowhere to put it. To solve this, the operating system starts moving older data from RAM back to the SSD. This process is called virtual memory, or paging. The problem is that even the fastest SSD is much slower than RAM. So now, instead of instantly accessing information, the processor has to wait while data is transferred back and forth. That's when your computer starts feeling slow. Applications take longer to open. Switching between programs becomes less responsive. Games may lose performance. Videos might stutter. And everything feels less smooth. Many people think their processor is too weak, when in reality, their computer simply doesn't have enough available RAM. So how much RAM do you actually need? For everyday tasks like browsing the internet, streaming videos, checking email, or working on documents, 8 GB is generally enough. If you enjoy gaming, multitasking, or keeping many browser tabs open, 16 GB is the sweet spot for most people. If you edit videos, create 3D models, run virtual machines, develop software, or work with large creative projects, 32 gigabytes or even more can provide a noticeable improvement. It's important to remember that adding more RAM doesn't automatically make every computer faster. If your system already has enough memory, installing more may not change much. But if your computer is constantly running out of RAM, upgrading it can make one of the biggest performance improvements you'll ever notice. So here's the simple way to think about it. Your SSD stores your files permanently. RAM temporarily holds the information you're actively using. And the CPU processes that information as quickly as possible. Each one has a different job, but together they allow your computer to run efficiently. Without RAM, even the most powerful processor would spend most of its time waiting instead of working. That's why RAM is one of the most important components inside every modern computer. If you learned something new today, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment telling us which computer component you'd like us to explain next. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.